would they also show them to us, and can we reciprocate that?
Yes, they show it. They show it to us all the time. They speak dog language to us.
Hi, and welcome to 10 Minutes with Professor Abrantes. We've got a fresh edition for you. So we've had some questions about pacifying behavior, submissive behavior, all those kinds of behaviors. So we are going to talk to Professor Abrantes about that now. Hello, Professor. Welcome.
Hello.
You ready? Ready for another 10 minutes?
Yes.
Ready for a grilling about pacifying behavior?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, here we go. So let's start like we always like to start with definitions. We like to establish what we're talking about so we know we're all on the same page. So, Professor, what is pacifying behavior?
Pacifying behavior, the word comes from Latin pax, P-A-X, which means peace. And it's all behavior with a specific function of decreasing or suppressing an opponent's aggressive or dominant behavior or restoring a state of tranquility.
Okay. So I've been noticing in the group sometimes people will say things like when we show little videos, they'll say, oh, that dog is showing calming signals. Those are calming behaviors. Those are calming signals. Where is the confusion, and what is pacifying behavior? What is a calming signal? Are they the same? Are they different? What's going on?
Well, I suppose they are the same. I don't have really a definition of calming signals or calming behavior. Other than examples, and when I look at them, they overlap with what we call pacifying behavior. Calming behavior or calming signals is a relatively new term. I presume it is the same as pacifying behavior. Yes.
Okay, and under what circumstances would a dog use pacifying behavior? What are some common pacifying behaviors that we might see in our own dogs?
Well, if you ask when, I will say all the time, because pacifying behaviors, or the class of behaviors that we call pacifying, are the largest and most common in social animals that have to live together because group living confers them advantages. And the benefits they get from that are higher than the costs they have to pay to live in groups. So they are very common, and they are used, as I said, either to resolve a conflict that normally arises because of resources. There is always, the famous struggle for survival and reproduction, and everything that may benefit your survival or your reproduction is a resource that the individuals want, and therefore there will always pop up conflicts, and conflicts have to be resolved. And for group living animals, the best strategy, the best behavioral strategy to resolve those conflicts, which means those that will again confer most benefits with least costs, is first and foremost by using frequently pacifying behavior. And I suppose that you are interested in pacifying behavior in dogs, right? Because they are different from species to species, even though many are actually common and are understood across species. But in dogs, we have the muzzle nudge, for instance. We have the muzzle nudge, the vacuum muzzle nudge, which is actually a muzzle nudge, but without touching the other one. We have the invitation to muzzle grasp. It's also pacifying behavior. We have licking the other, or the vacuum licking, as we call it, which is licking in the air. That's also pacifying behavior. Lip smacking, champing or chomping, as you prefer. Pawing, paw lifting, the very common paw lifting. The behavior that I coined, the twist movement many years ago. That behavior of letting one of the hind legs go a little bit to the side, like when we used to twist and shout in the 1960s. That's why I called it the twist, because it reminded me of that move in the dance, the twist, that viewers in my age probably will remember. But those are examples of common canine pacifying behaviors, and you see them being used all the time, because social animals, as I said, they need to live in a group. They need to have good relationships with the others, as peaceful as possible. Again, so that they pay the least cost and profit the most. And therefore, it's always good to keep the others in a good mood, good relationship. So you all the time ensure the others that you are okay, you are not threatening them, you are okay with the sharing resources. All those very important things that that we humans know very well, because we are also social animals. So we also spend the whole day showing pacifying behaviors. Now, you could say that there is a difference between a greeting behavior and a pacifying behavior. A greeting behavior is a pacifying behavior, but not all pacifying behavior is a greeting behavior. But the greeting, for instance, is another behavior to pacify, or to assure the opponent that we have good intentions, we're not going to attack, we're not going to threaten, etc. Everything is, at the end, it's to serve self-preservation. And by serving self-preservation, you serve reproduction as well, or the possibility of reproducing, which is what counts from an evolutionary point of view. It's a question of increasing one's fitness, and one's fitness is measured by how many percentage of your genes go to the next generation.
Okay. So, I mean, these behaviors that you refer to, I'm sure that most people who've been around dogs, they've seen them, perform or show these pacifying behaviors to each other. Would they also show them to us, and can we reciprocate that?
Yes, they show it. They show it to us all the time. They speak dog language to us. That's why I wrote my book, Dog Language, to make it a bit easier for us to translate. Yes, they show it to us all the time, and we can, in many situations, we can reciprocate by doing the same or similar, even though it can be a bit funny to do that. But sometimes we can. For instance, with the leaking, the vacuum leaking, and the chomping. It's very easy for us to do the same, very easy. We might look a little bit foolish, but it works. The dog likes it, the dog understands it, so it works. Of course, with the twist movement, I don't think they really understand the twist movement, because our anatomy is quite different. So I don't think that when we dance the twist, that all the dogs think that we are very cute. I don't think so. Definitely not.
So, okay, what would be, we're talking about pacifying behavior, but what about, really quickly, since we only have 10 minutes, but what about submissive behavior? Are there similarities, or is there a crossover with
Yes, there
submissive and
are.
pacifying?
Yes, there are. Because,
Okay.
behavior, it's like a spectrum. I used to compare it with colors. Yellow, orange, red. When does yellow turn into orange? When does orange turn into yellow? In red, into red. There is a spectrum, and it's the same with the behavior. And we can say that we start with something we could call friendly behavior, then we go to pacifying behavior, then we go to submissive behavior, then we go to fearful behavior. So it's all a continuum, a difference in quantity, but it makes sense to have categories and to say, okay, this is friendly behavior, this is a little bit more. No, this we classify as pacifying behavior. Oh, we have more here. This we classify as submissive behavior. Oh, we have much more. This is definitely fearful behavior. So it makes sense for us to understand it, but we have to understand that the thresholds between one and the other is not carved in stone. It's our way of understanding it.
Okay, I like how you put that. There's not a line. All right, one more question for you before we wrap up. Sometimes these behaviors that you refer to as pacifying, or on the pacifying spectrum, the color spectrum, sometimes when owners see these behaviors, they interpret them as it's a bad thing, like the dog is showing signs of stress and they need to do something different to alleviate the stress. How do you address that?
Look, everything is stressful. Everything that requires a reaction from you, a response from you, stresses you up. So we have to distinguish here between good and bad stress. And of course, dogs will show pacifying behavior when there is a situation they don't understand, a situation that requires a little bit more active engagement from their part. But I don't consider that a bad thing at all. That is part of living. They are in their blueprint. They are programmed to do that. Then in their genetic blueprint, it's a part of being a social animal. So they will show these behaviors many times daily, and it's not because they are abnormally or extremely stressed. It's just because they are what they are, and they interact with us the way they do. Of course, if a dog is constantly and all the time pawing or paw lifting or vacuum leaking, and that is constantly, then we should, of course, ask ourselves if there is anything wrong, because it's not normal either that you spend all your day awaking by pacifying others, right? But it's again a question of balance. If it is too much, then probably there is something wrong. But a certain frequency in showing these behaviors is absolutely normal, and there is no reason to be alarmed.
Nice. So it'll probably be a relief to some. And the chomping behavior that we were referring to earlier, if you haven't tried it, honestly, try it. Just try it with your dog and see what happens. I do it with my dogs all the time, and it's just try it. Do a little experiment if you've never done it before and see what happens. And if you want to read more about pacifying behavior, there are articles on the website that you can get to. Lots of really good information there. It goes a little bit more in depth. If you have any follow-up questions for Professor Abrantes, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we'll see if we can get him to answer you. And also, of course, always visit our ethology.eu website, where you can find these articles, you can find the courses, you can find the certification programs, you can even find merchandise, all kinds of great stuff there at ethology.eu. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Professor Abrantes, for sharing your knowledge with us here today. And we will be back soon with another 10 Minutes with Professor Abrantes.